One of the interesting misconceptions about checking vegetables is that you can take something that is infested with bugs and grind it, and then it becomes mutar. For instance, some people think that if they take some green things, like for instance, you take kale, or you take something else that has bugs in them, so all you need to do is put it in a blender, and that's permitted. Why? Because the idea is that there's bitul. Bitul means up to now there's bugs over there which are considered birya, the full creature, which the Torah doesn't allow. Once you put it in a blender, that cuts it, and therefore it becomes mevutal, as the halacha says in Yoreh De'ah Tzadik Tet. But it's wrong, because when a person does such a thing, it's doing bitul lechatchila. You're not initially allowed to cut that isur and make it mutar. It says in the halacha in Tzadik Tet that en mevatlim isur lechatchila. One is not permitted to do such a thing, especially when you know that there's bugs in them, things that are considered muhzak, which means we know that normally such things have bugs. Like for instance, you take a strawberry and you want to make a smoothie. When you want to make a smoothie, you mevatel that bug. The times that it would be mutar to be mevatel the isur and to use that technique that we're mentioning is with few conditions. First of all, if indeed you bought those strawberries, for example, to make a smoothie, that was your intention. It wasn't your intention to eat the strawberries, and since you know there's bugs, so therefore you grind it. Rather, you initially bought the strawberries in order to make such a juice, such a smoothie, so then that would be one of the conditions that would permit you to do such a thing, to put it in a blender and blend it to the point that the bug would be considered mevutal, which means you will cut it out and you're not going to be able to find it anymore. But second condition is that indeed it has to be in such a blender that works well, that does cut those bugs. Many of the bugs have a very strong body that the blade not necessarily would cut it through, rather it would just push it instead of going and smashing it. And for instance, those are the thrips, which have a very strong body. Therefore, one needs to use a really good blender like those Turbo, those Ninja blenders that would indeed, we would do such a good job and cause that strawberry to become a liquid. Thirdly, before doing any of that, one needs to clean as much as he can the vegetables or the fruits or the greens that he's planning to use. He can't just use it just like that. That is the halacha that is brought down in the Shach, in Siman Pei Daled, which is Ilchot Tolaim. He brings that idea in Seif Katan Lamed Tet, and he says that this is the only way that it was permitted. שמה שמצא מערי להתיר, גם מערי לא התיר אלא בעניין שהבררו קודם התחינה. You do have to do birur and try to make sure that it's as clean as possible. The only thing is that since you're not 100% sure that it's clean, therefore, then you can use that technique with the conditions we mentioned. Normally, you need to clean something, if you're planning to eat it as is, until it's 100% clean. If it's obligated to be cleaned, like for instance, it's muhzak betolaim, which means most time it has bugs, or even if it's not muhzak betolaim, which is minority times it would have bugs, but it would be what we call miuta matsui, which most poskim hold it's about 10%, some go down to 2-3% of times that it would have bugs. If that is the statistics of that fruit that you're planning to use, the greens that you're planning to use, so those leaves have to be cleaned 100%, not 99%, 100%. And therefore, if you're not sure that you cleaned it 100%, you can use that technique that we're saying right now, with the following conditions again. That first of all, you didn't buy it in order to eat those leaves, rather, you wanted to make such a juice. Secondly, you did clean it as much as possible. And thirdly, that not most of the leaves or most of the fruits are infested. And this is written openly in the Ben Ish Chai, all these conditions, in Parashat Nasor Shana Shniya. He writes the following thing in Tetzayin. Chitim meltulaim. Let's say you have wheat that are infested. Im rubam metulaim, if it's most of the wheat kernels that are infested, she'i efshar levareram im kerem legoy, then you can't clean it. But im en rubam metulaim, if it's the minority of the wheat kernels that infested, yevareram tchila. You have to clean it as much as possible, and only then, after you clean it as much as you can to the best of your ability, achar kach mutar letachanan. Then you can go and grind it, and it would be mutar because afilu im nishar tolaim mitraskim batchina. Those tolaim, those bugs or those worms that are still there would be grinded up in the machine, in the blender. Vetu en lahem din bria uvatle. They don't have a din anymore of bria, a full creature, and there would be mevutal. Vehu kavanato. So we have over here the two conditions. First condition is that it's not the majority. Second condition, that he cleaned it as much as he can, and only then he's allowed to grind it. Says the Ben Ish Chai, third condition, Vehu kavanato litchon velo ba levatel ha'isur be'adayim. His intention is to grind it and take and drink it the way it is, and not that he wants to eat those vegetables. Just that's the only way he was found to clean it or get rid of the tam. And therefore, with all that, it would be mutar. Otherwise, one can just go buy strawberries and say, you know what? Since I can't eat it the way it is, let me grind it, and that's the way I'll drink it. This should be the intention. I'm buying something in order to make a juice out of it. I'm buying something in order to make a spice out of it. Therefore, then with the conditions we mentioned, clean it as much as possible, then will be mutar.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.